Hi everyone, I'm Sally Wilson and I have with me as my guest right now the wonderful TRTP mentor and practitioner, Helena McCallum. Welcome, Helena.
Thanks, Sally.
So, Helena, you had a private practice long before you discovered TRTP, a practice in psychology, is my understanding.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So,
yes, I've been a psychologist for about 25 years, maybe a wee bit longer.
Yep.
Mm.
And so what drew you to TRTP?
Well, I had always been interested in the power of the imagination for making change.
Mm.
I had, in my 20s, which is a really long time ago now, I had been spent a lot of time with Tibetan teachers. In fact, I even did the shaved head robes thing for a while. And I became very interested in the way they use the power of the imagination to make huge shifts, really, in the personality and in one's being. And after I stopped being a nun, I actually went back to university and wrote a master's thesis on how imagery produces change, with a focus on female imagery in Tibetan Buddhism. So that was the kind of background that I had before I became a psychologist.
Right.
And I knew really that I needed a career after I had a baby, and I started. I trained in Gestalt therapy, and then in psychology. So I never came into psychology really as a straight CBT type therapist.
Yeah.
I was always interested in something else.
Yeah.
And even as a psychologist, I also have trained for 12 years with a woman called Catherine Shainberg, who runs a School of Images in New York. And that work is all about the power of imagery for deep change.
Yeah.
So, well.
What was the first thing that you actually, what struck you about the TRTP training before you'd done it that prompted you to then go ahead and register and become a certified practitioner?
Well, a couple of things. One was, although I was using the power of the imagination in my practice, I found that change was still coming fairly slowly.
And what slowly?
Well, people came to do their 10 sessions for psychology, and sometimes they got lots and lots better. And sometimes it felt they didn't, and I felt bad about that. I had one client who was a work cover client who was really my greatest source of embarrassment, in a sense, or shame, because he was so depressed. The PTSD was really severe, and I had used every trick in the bag as far as I was concerned.
Right.
And I had another client also that I had tried everything with, and neither of them were really getting well.
Right.
And I felt somehow, I always felt that there was a possibility of getting these people well. And that I hadn't found the switch, so to speak, even with the other imagery work. And it certainly wasn't happening fast enough with the client that man with the work cover issue that I saw for 6 years. That's a long time.
Yeah.
And then I got the email from TRTP saying this stuff works for PTSD in 3 sessions. And I thought, yeah, right.
Yeah.
What kind of sham is this?
Yeah.
But I was tempted to ring up. And I spoke to Judith, and I felt really inspired. And I thought, I can't really afford this. Maybe I'll put it off till next year. And then I rang back and said, because it was about a week before the training, and this was 6 years ago. I've got the money together. I'm in.
Yeah.
And really, it never looked back from that. And I came back to Melbourne, and I saw that particular client. I did 3 sessions with him. He was fine.
Wow. Yeah.
And
Gosh,
I
after
thought,
6
where have I
years.
been?
Wonderful. Yep.
And
so was he your first client with TRTP?
No, I practiced on a few others who had less severe trauma.
Yep.
The ones with kind of what you might call normal anxiety and normal depression.
Yeah.
But it wasn't all that long after.
Yeah.
It was probably only a month, that we did it, and he was keen to give it a go. He was really sick of how he was.
Yeah.
And it just opened something up in me, and it was like, yes. Let's do this.
And when you say, you never looked back from there, what does that mean in terms of the way you then conducted your practice and the clients that you saw?
Well, it really meant that, in a sense, I became a bit impatient with the other kind of work, and that when people came and they just wanted to do endless sessions, it's like, oh, no.
Yeah.
I didn't want to sit there listening to the story because I knew something else was possible.
Yeah.
And sometimes I still have people ring me up and want to do some work. They say, no, they don't really want to do TRTP. They want to do other work. And usually I do, a session or 2. And then, I explain to them this is going to work a whole lot better. And it does.
Yeah.
And of course, a lot of people, now that TRTP is becoming more known, are ringing specifically for TRTP.
Yes.
And that's wonderful.
Yeah. And Helena, I mean, you'd obviously been on a path of sort of self-discovery for a long time.
Yes.
And yet when you did the training, like any people do, as trainee practitioners, we all have to go through the process ourselves. Did you feel personal shifts? And if so, are you happy to share some of those with us?
I have certainly felt personal shifts. I feel, well, to start with, I feel a whole lot more confident about working with clients.
Yeah.
But that really comes from a shift in myself of feeling, well, more confident in myself, happier. I think there's more of a sense of freedom. And when I feel stuck with something, it's like, well, I can change it.
Yeah.
I can choose. I can make a choice.
Yeah.
So there's much more sense of less, worrying about, maybe this, maybe that. It's like, now it's more like I get to choose. I know who I am and I can make a much more specific choice. And that feels so much more empowering.
Yes.
I think so it works across all of the levels of both personal life and professional life, because when you get those kind of good results with your clients, like when someone comes in, I do a DAS with them, measuring depression, anxiety, and stress. I think most of us as practitioners do that. I never used to do that kind of testing before because I couldn't stand. Anyway, I do now and I love it because I love. It sounds a bit off, actually. It sounds a bit odd. But when you get someone who comes in extremely severe on depression, anxiety, and stress, I think it's going to be good.
Absolutely.
And in session 3, when you see these levels having gone from, well, in the DAS it goes normal, mild, moderate, severe, extremely severe. Session 3, 2 weeks and 1 day later, I've done 3 sessions, normal, 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 or maybe mild. And you think if something's mild or maybe even moderate, you think, what's wrong here? We have to shift this.
Yeah.
And that's extraordinary. And it's so, I still get this sense of excitement about it when I see it, even though it happens all the time.
Yeah.
It's so satisfying as a therapist.
Yeah.
Rather than, oh, this poor person, you know, with all their issues. It's like, it's just change it.
Yeah. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Helena, for sharing your experience and your very rich personal experience and how TRTP kind of came into that. It's wonderful.
I have to say, I feel so fortunate. I'm in my 70s now, and sometimes people say, "Oh, you're going to retire," and I think, why on earth would I?
Yeah.
This is such, you know.
Yeah.
It's such a joy doing this.
Yes.
Doing this work and just seeing lives change, and
Thank you, Helena.
And the sense of community with TRTP too that I never saw when I went to psychology workshops.
It's so valuable. It's so precious. Yeah. Well, thank you for joining me today, Helena. It's been really wonderful. It always is to speak with you.
Thank you, Sally.
And listeners and watchers, thank you for joining us and being a part of this conversation as well. Thank you, everyone. Bye.